Hi there, and welcome to the Surviving and Thriving in Residency podcast. I'm Charley Lowry, your host and director of GME Relations at PracticeLink. This show is all about exploring the world of graduate and undergraduate medical education. We'll dive into the real-life experiences, successes, and challenges faced by medical students, residents, and fellows, while also highlighting valuable tools to support you, whether that's financial planning, student aid, or the many free resources provided by PracticeLink. If you're thinking about med school, currently studying, or deep into residency or fellowship, this podcast is here to offer insights and support to make your journey a bit easier than those before you. Today, we are joined by an incredible guest whose voice has inspired thousands of future current physicians. Dr. Aderinola Adejare-Smith. Dr. Darren has a strong online presence where she shares real-life strategies on wellness, resilience, and navigating the demanding world of medicine, all while maintaining balance and joy. She is an anesthesiologist at Johns Hopkins Bayview Medical Center in Baltimore, Maryland, a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania and the Ohio University College of Medicine, and the University of Cincinnati Anesthesiology Residency Program. She is passionate about leadership, patient care, and team excellence. Beyond medicine, Dr. Adejare-Smith, also known as Dr. Darren, is a wife, mother, and Christian who speaks on resilience, faith, and purpose-driven success, empowering others to thrive without sacrificing their faith, health, or personal well-being. Today, we'll explore her journey, lessons from residency, her approach to wellness and productivity, and advice for anyone in or entering medical training. Dr. Darren, thank you so much for being here. I truly do appreciate it. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So to start, can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and what first inspired you to pursue medicine?
Yes, absolutely. So I am originally from Nigeria. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, moved to the US in 2001. So I was about 10 years old, turning 11 years old at that time. My interest in medicine came from a series of things. I used to have a little brother who passed away in Nigeria. And when he passed away, I was about 6 years old and never really knew what happened, never really knew the cause of death. I was kind of there when the whole situation started and him being rushed to the hospital. And then the next thing I know, he was no longer alive. And for me, it kind of just piqued my interest in was this preventable and what caused it. So that was the initial spark. And then when we moved to the United States as immigrants, came from a low income background, I'll say. So didn't have insurance for a couple of years. So part of that was just making sure one tries to avoid the hospital, try to avoid any risky activity, and just trying to, medicate at home without having to go to the hospital. So part of that also sparked my interest in just healthcare and being able to afford healthcare and just underserved communities in general being in that space as well. Ultimately, went to college thinking I was going to pursue medicine, got more exposure through various programs and shadowing opportunities, and decided to go for it. And here we are many years later.
Oh, that's incredible. So something I might talk to you about a little later is working with international medical graduates. The relationship is there, being an immigrant yourself from a young age, and then working with international medical graduates who come in as adults into a brand new culture and all of that. That's something that's very interesting. And we have a lot of IMGs who come on the program and who are listeners. So we may talk about that a little bit later. What about your early influencers? Did you have any early influencers that maybe piqued your interest more in the pathway to medicine?
Yeah, so I would say in college, not so much. I didn't really have any strong mentors. I did do a wonderful program as a sophomore in college. At that time, it was called SMDP. I believe it stands for Summer Medical Dental Education Program. It was through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation in New Jersey. It's now called something else. I think it's called SHEEP or something like that. But I did it at Howard University. And that was a wonderful exposure to seeing physicians who looked like me in this field. So that exposure was early, and that was at a time where I really needed it because first year as in college had been rough, and going into this program kind of helped spark that fire again and made me believe that I could do it. So that was an early influence. When I graduated from college and was in this space of still trying to get into medical school and do all the things and not really having any guidance because my parents aren't physicians and I didn't really feel like I had any close mentors at that time. I actually looked to social media for some of my early influencers. So I would like search for like Black women physicians and a couple of back then, this was back in 2013, 2014, there weren't too many on Instagram at that time, but the ones that I did find were part of my early influencers. So they also kind of pushed me, seeing again people who look like me in the field, and even reaching out to two of them to help me even like read my personal statement and help encourage me on the journey was beneficial. So those were my early.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really incredible. And are they still on social media?
They are still on social media and they've grown their platforms.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. That's so nice. So tell me a little bit about medical school and maybe, what was your first year like? What were your clinical years like? Just a little bit about that, some of the anxieties you had and looking back on it, what are your thoughts on what would you do differently maybe if you could go
Yeah.
back?
So my journey was non-traditional. So what I did was actually take 2 years off before going into medical school. And then I did a 1 year post-bac. It was a conditional acceptance program called MedPath at the Ohio State University College of Medicine. So starting my first year, I felt prepared. That's one word. Partially because I felt like I was a little bit more mature. I'd taken some time off to work in real life, and I felt like I knew how to handle stressful situations. And my post back here had been instrumental in just helping me hone down on some study skills. So that was great. The tough part, as with anything, is the amount of information you get during first year and being able to quickly change methods that are not working to better accommodate the fire extinguisher type of information that's coming at you. So I would say, like, the first couple of months, I quickly realized that I had to adapt my way of studying, and I also realized that I needed to put wellness back into my routine. I actually blogged about this during my first year. So initially, when I started, it was kind of focusing more on just studying school and just trying to grasp that information, which is nice, which is understandable. There's a period of adaptation to this level of information you're getting. But because of that, I put some of my wellness activities, meaning working out, to the wayside. And I saw very astutely how that affected my mood. So I would say in the second part of my first year of college, I realized that I have to get movement back into my routine. This has to be part of my regular weekly, daily thing to stay sane with the amount of stress that I was under as a first year. So that's something that I learned during that first year. And ever since then, I have always incorporated movement throughout my entire lifestyle, I guess.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. We always talk about mind, body, and spirit. And a lot of things we talk about on the podcast is how easy it is first year of medical school to eat
Mhm.
unhealthy and not just by that definition, eating bad food, but maybe neglecting eating at all, regular meals and working out, things like that, how easy it is to forget about yourself,
Yeah, it is
right?
very easy. I mean, it's a period of adjustment. Like the first, I want to say the first 6 months, maybe first 8 months, you're just trying to just stay afloat. It's a
Right?
lot more information than you've ever had in undergrad. You have to learn in a quick amount of time. And then depending on how often your exams are, some people have weekly exams, some people it's like end of the quarter or semester exams. It's a lot of stress. So I
Yep.
think, there's an adjustment period that can last, for some a whole year, for some people 8 months, where you're just trying to just find a balance and stay afloat. And hopefully you find a rhythm that works
Yep.
for you.
Yeah. Now, how about clinical years? Did you know that you wanted to go into anesthesiology in your third year? Was it an early decision, or when did you make that decision?
It was not an early decision. I actually did not have anesthesia in my radar at all.
Okay.
So for a long period of time, I thought I was going to do something procedural or surgical. I think it was a summer going between second and third year of medical school. I did several shadowing opportunities in surgical subspecialties, orthopedics, urology, ophthalmology, things that were surgical based that I thought I would maybe get some more exposure before my third year clinical year to see if this is something I want to hone down on. Ultimately went into third year thinking possibly OBGYN. Some of the mentors that I had earlier on, even the ones that I kind of met through social media, were OBGYNs, and I thought that would be a good field for me. And I did not know about anesthesia or was even interested in it until I had my cardiac surgery rotation. And I was in the operating room. And as you know, when during cardiac surgery, it's a very small space. As a med student, you can barely see anything because everyone's crowding around the thoracic area. So the anesthesiologist, who was a cardiac anesthesiologist, was like, hey, why don't you come over behind the curtain, behind the field, and come see what we do on my side? And that was my first exposure to anesthesia. And I was intrigued by what he was doing behind the field. I I'd never really thought about anesthesia, and that is a critical part of surgery. And then after that rotation, I actually had my peds anesthesiology rotation. So the great thing about Ohio State is that we do have an anesthesiology rotation built in. So it's not an elective, it's actually mandatory during the surgical block. So I had that 1 week, and that 1 week, I realized that I liked the personalities of the anesthesiologists that I was working with. I realized there was a lot more hands-on things than I thought. And I also realized the physiology was interesting and people seemed happy. It seemed like a really good lifestyle personality. So after that rotation, my next one was OBGYN. So it was a great balance to see compare directly both experiences. And after my first week of my OBGYN rotation, I realized that anesthesia was where I wanted to be.
Oh,
Yes.
it's so nice. Yeah, that's so
Mhm.
nice. Just stepping around the curtain
Just
made
stepping
all
around
the
it
difference in the
made
world.
all the difference, and it helped that I had a anesthesiology attending that was willing to, hey, come on by, come see what we do on this side.
Yeah,
Because if I didn't have that exposure, I can't say for sure that I would have really looked into it.
right, right. We'd like to take a moment to highlight the impact of one of our strategic partners. If you're looking for a practical way to enhance your life and career, physician coaching is well worth considering. Whether you're facing a professional challenge, just beginning your medical journey and seeking guidance, or navigating the complexities of leadership as an established clinician, physician coaching can help you discover your next life-changing moment. MD Coaches provides tailored one-on-one and group coaching for physicians by physicians. You don't have to go it alone. Visit mymdcoaches.com to take that next step toward unlocking or even exploring your full potential. Well, tell me now about first year residency. What was it like for the transition from medical student to resident? Was that a hard transition for you?
Yeah, so it is hard. It is hard. First off, as an intern, you're not yet in your chosen specialty.
Mhm.
So for anesthesiology, most of your intern year is medicine. So you're doing internal medicine and learning the basic foundation of just medicine. And that can be hard because you thought you wanted to do anesthesia but you're doing something else. But this is the foundation of what you're going to do. At the same time, you are working a lot more hours than you've ever worked, and you're trying to balance all of that and eat regularly
Mhm.
and try to sleep, and you're making decisions. You have nurses calling you about orders, and you're trying to make decisions as a brand new intern at the same time trying to be competent but not be overbearing to your seniors. So it's a lot of things to balance. And I would say it was definitely a challenging year for sure. It got a little better because, you get into a rhythm, you know a little bit more, you know a little bit more medicine, and you learn the flow of things. But the beginning, it's definitely hard. It is an adjustment period for sure.
Yeah, plus being in a new city,
Being in a new city, yep, exactly,
right? Not having your circle of people that you're used to
exactly.
having. Yeah.
Absolutely. Not being in UC and all that. And my husband also is in medicine, and he was also in a surgical, he's in a surgical specialty. He was also a resident. So both of us just being stressed in the house. It's a lot.
Oh, oh. Okay.
Yep,
Well,
yep, that adds to it.
Yep. Someone at least to commiserate with, right? A
Yeah,
little
that is
bit,
the
right? A
positive.
little
Yeah,
bit.
because
Yeah.
exactly. So the wonderful thing about having a spouse who's also in medicine is that they understand what you're going through. So
Yeah.
that is the great thing about that for sure.
Yep. So during your intern year, you blogged openly.
Mhm.
What motivated you to share those experiences at such a vulnerable time in your life?
Yeah, so I blogged during med school and some of residency, not too much in residency, I would say. I guess more on social media and on Instagram, I would say I did more of that during residency. And part of that was just to share the experience of one not being alone in this journey. Like you mentioned, you're in a new city, and one of the ways with blogging and sharing your experiences is maintaining some sort of connection with those that you are, that you like, your friends, your family, that sort of thing, and also just making new connections that you may not have found yet in your new city. So that was one way to do that, made some online friends that way. And also just sharing that, like times where I was on had a terrible night shift where I just felt overwhelmed and it was a lot going on, a lot of admissions or it was like a negative outcome and I was maybe a little bit upset about that. Being able to share that and people being like, "Oh, I've been in the same place, it gets better." That is encouraging. So it does provide a light even in that dark situation. So it's a mutual thing of both being encouraged by others when I share and also encouraging others by me sharing.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's a great way to give back. I think a lot of people out there would think social media has no role here, or, what are you doing? Why are you posting this? Or what an incredible way to get back, and what an incredible way to reach so many people who are
Mhm.
having the same struggles, who are, going through things and just need someone to reach out to. And I love the fact that you reached out to some social media influencers way back in your journey at the very start, and
Mhm.
now you're giving back, you're doing the same. So I just love
Mhm.
it. I think it's incredible.
Thank
I
you.
think it's really great. Definitely keep doing what you're doing. It does make a difference in a lot of people's lives.
Mhm.
Good way to reach a lot of people. So a lot of residents struggle with self-doubt or imposter syndrome. Did you experience that? And if so, how did you work through that?
Yeah, and not so much, I would say, imposter syndrome. Maybe, I guess self-doubt is the same as imposter syndrome. I will say this, being a Black woman and being in a field where I'm a minority, I often felt like maybe all eyes were on me, whether or not that's true or not. It could be just a perceived notion. There's a certain kind of pressure that I felt that I always had to be on my A game at all times,
Sure.
and that there were no rooms for mistakes, which can be a lot of pressure to put on yourself. So I would say that, I mean, again, going back to having someone or close friend or a spouse that's in medicine, being able to express those feelings because my co-residents, none of them looked like me. So they may not necessarily understand when I feel like, oh, I feel like maybe closer, may not be true, but a perception of more eyes on me and maybe feeling like I have to always do my best compared to everybody else. Whether or not that's true or not is debatable. But there were some times, I guess, when you first start your CA 1 year, which is your PGY 2 year, that's the year when you're fully in anesthesia and you're now in the operating room, you're no longer on medicine floors. And that learning curve can be pretty steep. And at that time, it's like, yes, I'm in my dream specialty, but at the same time, I have to take in so much information at all times, at all times, and learn what each attending that you're working with prefers. So I would say that part was a little challenging. I don't think there was ever a time where I felt like I am an imposter in my program. I think there were times where I felt like I have to maintain a certain standard at all times and very little grace for mistakes is what I felt like for myself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about mind, body, and spirit during residency? During all those hours you were working and when you were so tired, and
Mhm.
how you just kept everything going?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that has helped me be centered overall, I would say, is my faith. So even in residency, one of the main priorities was finding a church home where I, was separate from medicine, where I could center myself and was just like a grounding thing for me. So even in residency, I found a church home that I went to on Sundays when I was able to. And at the same time, I also served at the church as like a greeter. So it was something that kept me centered. Medicine is very stressful, it's very hectic, and it's very easy to just be consumed by it. But on Sundays, when you are away from that and you are serving other people and you're around people that are not in medicine and you're around just regular people, it just really centers you that there's more to life than medicine. Okay. There's actually a life outside of this stressful microcosm of residency that you're in. So that was something that was very grounding for me in our residency. The other thing, like I mentioned, is just trying to stay active. So at one point when I realized, like, I started residency in COVID, unfortunately, 2020. So there weren't many opportunities to like really socialize right away off the bat. And during that time, I realized, okay, I can't really socialize that much. And then gyms were like kind of pseudo closed, weird hours. It's even hard to get into that as a resident with those hours. I bought equipment on Amazon and started working out at home. And that was convenient because I knew that, okay, I can get up a little bit early, 5 o'clock, 5:30, and do some movement before going to work. And that already had my endorphins going and had me starting the day feeling centered. So those are some practices that I did.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Great way to incorporate yourself into a community and build a community, as well as sometimes seeking out that faith-based community,
Mm-hmm.
keep you grounded. We were on a podcast yesterday, and one of the topics was never forget, as a resident or as an attending, you're human first and you
Mm-hmm.
are a physician second. So, right,
Right.
and I think people often tend to forget that, and they look at a
Mm-hmm.
physician as someone who is going to be healthy and on top of everything, and they forget that
Mm-hmm.
they are human too.
Looking for your first job after training? With PracticeLink, your job search starts and stays on your terms. You control when employers see your contact information. No spam, no cold calls, just relevant jobs from verified recruiters. Join thousands of physicians using PracticeLink to take the next step with confidence. Sign up free at practicelink.com.
So, for our listeners who might be hesitant about putting themselves out there, especially in a digital space, what advice would you give them?
I would say one, don't put pressure on yourself to feel like you have to share all parts of yourself. Again, this is something that I think helps if it comes naturally. And then two, think of what you would have liked to see in different stages of your journey. I knew that as a pre-med, I would have loved to see non-traditionals and sharing their journey. And that's why I started sharing my journey. Started with the blog about this is what it's like applying as a non-traditional. I knew I wanted to see physicians who looked like me, so I started sharing more of that. I knew I wanted to see, other women physicians having families in residency, having babies and growing their family and not being limited by this long amount of training that we had. So I shared my journey as, I had my daughter in residency. So being able to see things that I know that I would have loved to see motivated me to share more. So if you are someone that is a little apprehensive about it, think about what is something that you right now would have benefited from in the past, present, or in the future, and how can you contribute to that space or fill that gap? It is okay to also, I know people like to sometimes wait until they've made it to start sharing their journey. I would actually argue that you sharing during the process actually ignites something in you and adds some more fuel to that process. One, there is more eyes on you, but two, you get the opportunity for people to cheer you on during that process. And you will find that there are people that will support you as you're sharing your process. You don't have to wait until you finally made it to be in the social media space. So.
Love it. Love it. And that's a big goal for this podcast as well, is we hope our listeners can learn from people who are going through it right now. And so we always try to talk about what would you do differently and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Great advice. Tell me about defining the word thriving in residency. You talk a lot about thriving in faith and health and identity.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think thriving during residency is?
I would say thriving is being able to still maintain a sense of self doing residency and still being able to maintain the things that make you you, your values, and not being completely, I want to use the word jaded when you leave training. I mean, you see it all the time, or you may have read it all the time, where there are people who start residency one way and finish being just like completely burnt out, being very skeptic, or just the whole process of residency has just made them either more negative or just very jaded about medicine in general. Thriving, I would say, is being able to still maintain that sense of self and, an optimism and also the things that make you you. So for me, things that made me me, my love for fitness, my values on family and community, and being able to inspire others. And I would say that I was able to keep those four things throughout residency. My sense of family and community, like I mentioned, still being able to find a church home, being able to grow my family in the midst of this residency journey, being able to still inspire others, core values that I had, being able to maintain that all 4 years, I would call that thriving. And thriving can look like different things to different people. Those are my personal core values, and other people may have different other values like traveling. I know now in this age of social media, you can see a lot of more what people are doing. So now you see that some residents are able to still maintain some of their loves, like traveling. Somehow they're still able to do that. And that's a version of thriving because that's something that they enjoy and they're able to fit it in even in the midst of this stressful 4 or 5 year journey that they're on.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned burnout, and burnout, that's definitely a real thing. What are practical strategies that maybe you could recommend for residents to prevent burnout? Any words of wisdom there?
I think it's very important to have people around you that recognize when you are in that space. Residency can be isolating, and I can definitely sympathize with those who are very far away from their family, on a completely different coast. But I would say being able to have someone who can recognize that, hey, you are like not yourself lately, and what can we do to help fix this? What can we do to help change this? Maybe we need to just take a couple of vacation days. Maybe we need to do like a complete retreat. Maybe we need to do therapy. It's helpful to have someone who can recognize it and help you kind of work through it and get the help that you may need. I know people who started therapy in residency, who also had pharmaceutical help, maybe antidepressants, but those things you may not recognize when you're in burnout, but those closest to you can recognize it. And if they can talk to you about it, it can be the first step towards helping to address the issue.
Yeah. And so many residencies have great systems in place to help. A lot of free resources and great resources out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely reach out if you are experiencing burnout. So what's next for you? Professionally, personally, how has residency and being an anesthesiologist now in a great place in the country, how has all that shaped your vision for the future?
It's been wonderful. I now see, going into anesthesia, I thought I was going to love the specialty. I'm glad that now, as a practicing anesthesiologist, I can say that I love the profession. I find it very fulfilling. And where I'm currently at John Hopkins Bayview Medical Center, I love working there and I enjoy the people that I work with. So this is my second year as an attending, and it's been good so far. I recently took on a leadership role as orthopedic anesthesia liaison. So working with orthopedics department to kind of streamline our process and make it more efficient when we do joint cases and ortho trauma. On the personal end, I am expecting, so I'm soon to be a mother of two.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep.
So he's actually due next month. So it's going to be a different sort of life changes. And again, navigating that as well. So that's exciting. And just continuing to grow my social media presence. I'm hoping that as time goes on, I continue to inspire and reach thousands with the message that it is possible to thrive in every stage of your life and that there are people doing this. And I hope to continue to be a light to others, hoping to do more speaking engagements and more features like
Yeah.
this on podcasts and just getting the story out there and being an inspiration and someone that I personally would have loved to see during all aspects of my journey.
Oh, yeah, for sure. How about this? Are you a preceptor? Do you take medical students that are on rotations?
Yeah, so because John Hopkins is academic, I do work with residents, anesthesia residents that rotate through us, work with them. And I have had people reach out to me because of social media asking if they can also shadow. And there is a process that one can do for that if you're interested. So I do a little bit of that as well.
That's great. So just a couple of questions and we'll close up. If you were speaking to residents 5 years from now, what do you want them to remember most about their journey?
I would love them to remember that they did it. They were successful. And that is a very big deal. There are people that start the journey, start medical school and aren't able to finish, start residency and aren't able to finish. Being able to finish and finish whole and intact with your mental faculties still sane and your physical body still sane is a big deal. So it's not something that should be belittled and that they've earned their spot. So now that you have gone through residency, you are in your dream specialty and you are doing it. And now is the time because you did it to also encourage others and remember what you were going through and try to remind others that they too can do it.
Love it. Final wisdom for listeners. What's one lesson or mantra you'd want every resident to carry forward?
That's great. I love that question. I would say one of my favorite quotes, and I have mentioned this in the past on social media as well. It goes like this. It's from Oprah Winfrey. Do the one thing you think you cannot do. Fail at it. Try again. Do better the second time. Those who never tumble are those who never mount the high wire. This is your moment. Own it. I love that quote because one, it reminds you to just go for it, scared. If you think you can't do it, I going through medical school, like I said, none of my parents in medicine and being from a low income background, still going for it. And two, not being afraid to fail. I think that's a very important thing as well. And that's something that I can definitely talk about as someone who took the MCAT multiple times. You may fail, but you try again. The most important thing is to try again and have the audacity to go for it. And that is something that I hold very dearly, and I just kind of apply to all aspects of my life.
So great. What about going back to Nigeria?
Yeah,
Do you ever go back, or have you been back, or do you have plans of going back?
yes, I was actually just there earlier this year. I went in January with my husband and my daughter, my 2-year-old daughter, and it was a wonderful time. We got to see our family members. It was lovely. Something that I would love to do in the future is some health programs, international health programs. I've done mission trips in the past, global health mission trips in the past, but I have not done one to sub-Saharan Africa or specifically Nigeria. So that's something I would love to do sometime in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on there in the medical field, I think, in Nigeria, a lot of
Mhm,
things being built, and
mhm.
that's great to see. So, Dr. Darren, I can't thank you enough. I know you're a very busy person and you have so much going on, and taking time out of your day to spend with me and our audience. I just can't thank you enough for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invite to be on this podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And I would love to invite you back for another episode. We could talk about a million different things. So I would
Mhm.
love to do that. Dr. Darren, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you for your insight and encouragement. To everyone listening, remember, surviving residency is more than clinical competence. It's about shaping resilience, purpose, and a life that you love. You can follow Dr. Darren at Dr. Darren _ on Instagram and TikTok. The link will be in our show notes. and visit her website for resources on wellness and professional growth. And until next time, keep thriving through every challenge and celebrating every win. Thank you for listening.